If you want to get good at mixing and mastering and producing music, obviously you have to learn how to listen. But how do you learn how to listen? You have to go a step further, and you have to start to understand silence. People think of silence as nothingness, as empty space. That doesn't help you with learning how to listen. You should think of silence as a stage that the music is on. Sound comes out of silence and dies back into silence. Silence is a part of music. Silence frames the notes. If a piano player plays a loud note and a quiet note, the loud note is further away from silence than the quiet note is. Silence fills the empty space when the piano player waits just that extra few milliseconds to play the resolving note to provide the emotional context. It's silence that made that possible. Silence and music create the contrast that make the connection possible. Silence is responsible for the spaces between the notes, the way the notes land, the velocity of the notes. And I think when you start to understand that, it becomes a bit easier to learn how to listen. Because how long does a sound take to decay into silence? How long does a sound take to come out of silence? I think sounds are like the waves hitting the shore, and silence is like the ocean. But I think the waves and the ocean are the same thing, and they need each other. So I think as an engineer, it's really important to remember to rest between sessions. It's really important to have moments of silence before you listen to something you're about to work on. It's really important to have moments of silence after you've worked on something so that the body knows it's time to let it go. I think resting in our culture can feel like failure or feel like laziness or feel like wasted potential. But resting in silence provides context for you to understand sound much better. If you can punctuate your day with moments of rest, moments of silence, it makes you much more efficient, much more effective, and much more likely to be able to get into flow state and to be aware of what the sound is doing. If the sound is constantly playing and you're always listening to music at a high volume, your body ends up in a state of distress. And that affects how you feel. And that affects how you act. And that stress and those feelings will make its way into the music through your decisions. They'll make its way into the music through your understanding of the sound based on the lack of context that the silence can provide it around it. I think people forget that because they're too focused on the sound. They forget the ocean of silence that makes it possible in the first place. I think life is kind of also like that. I think you don't have a life. I don't think that it is a possession that you own. I don't think it's something you can hold. I think that life has a you. You're born out of life and you die back into life in the same way a wave comes out of the ocean and dies back into the ocean. But you're not the wave. You're the wave and the ocean. They're inseparable in the same way that collective consciousness contains everything. So I think life works like that, and I think music works like that, that if you want to understand the sound, you have to also understand the silence. Once you understand the silence, understanding the sound is much easier. You have the context and the contrast. You can see the stage and the performers. You can hear the color of the sound with silence as the backdrop. That improves your listening. That improves your peace of mind, and that makes you feel more relaxed and more sensitive. When you feel more relaxed and more sensitive and less reactive, it becomes a lot easier to work with sound and music, because you're not working from a place of frustration or fear or confusion or stress. You're working from a place of awareness, openness, love, patience, kindness, empathy. And then the decisions flow. There's less resistance. You make better decisions. It becomes obvious what you need to do to the track. And you start to connect with the musician behind the song. You can feel their emotions come through, because you're not so focused on minute details. You're not so focused on a stress response. And you're not so focused on what the ego is telling you to do, which is work harder, try more, succeed. That way you act as a translator for the music, because once it goes through you as the mastering engineer, it leaves the creation and it goes out into the world as a gift for potential connection. All of this is possible through understanding the framing of the song, the silence which surrounds it, and the patience which that helps you have to clearly be aware enough to make decisions easily, without pressure, without fear, and without frustration. When I started to understand this, my sound engineering improved. Because rest, contrast, and peace helps you to hear, which helps you to listen, which helps you to make better decisions.